Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall,
examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.
I'm Larry Bishop, and you're listening to The World Is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about
Nicole Kidman.
Welcome to a bonus episode of The World is Wrong podcast, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films and film artists the world is wrong about. I'm your host, Andras Jones, and
I'm Brian Connolly, the other host.
we are the host of the show, and like I said, this is a bonus episode launching into a month of Kid Mania. We're not crazy for kids. That'd be a little weird. Considering that most of our shows get an explicit rating. No, we are crazy for Nicole Kidman. In one of our first episodes, we covered The Paperboy, thanks to your recommendation, Brian. And at that time, I think we both sort of sat back and were like, wait a second. I mean, everyone knows Nicole Kidman's great, but how come we maybe both of us were just like, how come we've never really thought of Nicole Kidman as quite the heavyweight as an actor that she is? Is that correct?
Yeah, and we mentioned this during the Paperboy episode that like people like Nicolas Cage get all this love from everybody and all this big excitement from fans, and people are always excited about what crazy thing he's going to do next. But Nicole Kidman is not getting that, and she should, because she's equally interesting and wild in all her performances.
Yeah. So so we sort of had that percolating, and then we decided that in the month of March we wanted to celebrate a woman in film, and it just seemed like the right time to focus our attention on Nicole Kidman. And so over the rest of this month, we're going to be looking at 4 of her films from what I consider to be most of them from the really exciting part of her career, which is like the early 2000s, early mid 2000s. And we're going to be looking at next week, or actually starting tomorrow, we're going to be releasing an episode about Bewitched from Nora Ephron. And then the following week, we're doing Fur, an imaginary portrait of Diane Arbus from Steven Shainberg. And then we're doing Birth from Jonathan Glazer. And we're wrapping up the month with Destroyer from Karen Kusama. So now we're here to just sort of give you an intro, sort of a general overview of Nicole Kidman, maybe looking at areas that we've come to appreciate in our research for this month, and maybe some films that we left out that are worth checking out. So let's start with this. I've talked a lot now, Brian. Brian, tell us a little bit about your experience with Nicole Kidman as a film artist.
Well, I'm definitely guilty of sort of dismissing her at first, like in the 90s when she was Tom Cruise's wife, and she was in Days of Thunder and like Far and Away with Cruise and Batman Forever. Like that's kind of what I knew her from, and I was like, okay, yeah, you're a pretty lady, you're a famous actress, you're just one of those famous actresses. I don't need to think much about you. And then Eyes Wide Shut came out, and it was very exciting. But even with that movie, I was definitely more excited about this is Tom Cruise doing something really interesting with Stanley Kubrick. She's certainly very, very good in it. But again, I was just sort of didn't really think, I wasn't literally like, oh man, this is the lady. And honestly, there's 2 movies that kind of really kind of changed my mind about it. And I saw them probably around the same time. The first one was To Die For, where I was like, oh, this is really good. She's really, really good in this movie, and that's such an interesting movie. And then the other one, strange enough, was the Stepford Wives remake that she's in. At the beginning of that movie, she has a moment that is so exciting that, and I actually the reason why I saw it is because Zach Carlson, who's co-hosting 2 of these episodes with you this month, called me after watching it first, and he was like, "You need to watch the Stepford Wives remake." And I'm like, "Really? Do I?" And he's like, "Yes, you do. Nicole Kidman does this thing in the first 5 minutes that's incredible. Like, you have to see this performance." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I was blown away, and then I was kind of hooked after that, and was like, "Okay, she's amazing, and I'm gonna see everything that she does because I'm so excited about like the different things she's gonna be doing." You know?
Yeah. And then after that, have you felt like you've followed her in a different way?
Definitely. It's definitely more like when you hear that she's doing something, it's like, oh, what is that going to be? That's exciting. It's not just, oh, there's some big movie going on and I don't need to think about it. Like it's exciting to see. And it's like interesting as she gets older to see like what different things she's going to do. Like what, cause she's constantly challenging herself and constantly, taking risks. And I think she'll be one of those people that's always going to do that. And it's always great when you find an actor or an actress that does that. I don't think there's going to be any phone-ins from her ever. Don't think she's capable of it.
Yeah, she is such a stealth actor. Like, she's a out front star, but she's a super stealth actor. And I think that if you anyone who starts to really explore her work beyond just the sort of the movie star facade is going to come up against some facts that make that clear. I think 2 things that really just sort of opened it up for me were, one, I think we know this, but it's something you don't think about. 90% of the time you see Nicole Kidman acting, she's doing an accent. I mean,
yeah,
she's doing an accent that is familiar to you, so you think she's not doing an accent. And when she sounds like she really sounds, you think, oh, she's doing an Australian accent. But mostly she's almost always doing an accent, which when other actors are doing accents all the time, they get credit for like, oh, well, that's acting.
I never even thought of it that way. That is so interesting. It's like, yeah, she's not from America, and most of the time she plays American, so that's like her doing, like, you try walking around all day doing like a British accent, like your throat's gonna hurt a bit. Like that's not easy to do.
To the point where British actors think that when you're doing an American, when actual people from Britain actually hear your voice, they think, oh, you're doing an accent when you speak in your American accent. That, like, I don't know anyone who's really done that. So that's pretty impressive. And then the other one is she's almost always wearing a wig. Like when she's a beautiful blonde wig in Bewitched. I mean, beautiful blonde hair in Bewitched. I think that's a wig. I've been doing some research. A lot of times that you think it's her normal hair, she's wearing a wig. So almost every performance has some level of body transformation through theatrical makeup and hair, and a voice shift before what you think of as the acting has even started. She's already made these 2 big changes to her who she is, and these go by mostly invisible. I don't think I've never thought of either of these things when I'm watching her films. When I was watching To Die For, I didn't think, oh, here's this Australian actress doing this American accent and pulling it off. I just thought, here's a great performance. But behind that performance is a different voice, and maybe, I don't know if she was doing the wig work then, but I think that's a fun way to watch Nicole Kidman's work, is to try and figure out, is it a wig or is it her hair? From my understanding, a lot of times it's a wig. And man, if I was working on a film with her, I would make sure I wore a wig, because I'd be like, she must have the best wig people in the world. I want to learn wig work. I want her to do a workshop in wig work with Nicole Kidman. actually makes me want to go through her films and think of look at other actors who might be wearing wigs in her films for that exact reason. They're like, you get to work with.
Well, I want one too.
Yeah. Give me a pompadour.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that's really interesting and exciting about her. And this, we did The Horse's Mouth recently as an episode with Alec Guinness. And as I've been looking at Nicole Kidman, I feel like Alec Guinness is a really strong analog for her because so you have those two elements where she is transforming her body in a character actor way, but that also is kind of invisible in the same way that when we first met Alec Guinness as an actor in his early roles, he was always behind a lot of makeup and transforming himself. It took us a long time to see who the quote real Alec Guinness was. And even then you have to question, is it the real Alec Guinness or is it just a more subtle characterization? And then the other thing is that like Alec Guinness, she was already a full-fledged star in Australia before she came to America. So there's just something about actors like that who have, they've made some of their mistakes. They've got their team together. By the time they hit the U.S. market, they are, not only is she a really well-trained actress, but she's got a really strong machine around her, which I think accounts for her later career success. Like she just, at a certain point, she just has never had a false step. Like we talk about Nicolas Cage, and you kind of get the sense that Nicolas Cage is doing small, interesting films because he made some big mistakes. Whereas you get the sense that Nicole Kidman is doing small, interesting films because she didn't make any mistakes. She hasn't made mistakes. She could easily hop into a big movie and then hop back to a little one because that's what she wants to do, not because it's what she has to do, Yeah.
But she definitely arrived fully formed. I watched Rumblefish yesterday for the first time. And that's Nicolas Cage's first real role, not counting Fast Times, where he doesn't really talk in it. And he's already fully formed in that movie. This is Nicolas Cage, and he is already thinking about the way, he's doing what we love him now for back then. And Nicole Kidman's the same way. Watching it's in the 80s. There's a lot of stuff nobody saw here because it's a lot of TV, Australian TV. Maybe you saw BMX Bandits. But she's already really, she's the best part of that movie. That's not a great movie, but she's really good in it. And then this morning I watched Dead Calm. Per your request, you said, Brian, you have to watch Dead Calm. She's already amazing in that movie. And that's within less than the first 10 years of her career. And you're right. That movie's amazing. And she is amazing in that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And that brings us to her collaboration with George Kennedy and Byron Miller,
George Miller, Byron Kennedy.
Sorry, did I do that?
I wish it was George Kennedy. But
I've been thinking about I've been not wanting to make that mistake so much that I just did it. George Miller and Byron Kennedy, and they're the team behind Mad Max, and obviously, Babe, Pig in the City. Well, by then. Byron Kennedy had died, but the two of them were sort of they were the big producers, the big Australian producers in the 80s. And they recognized Nicole Kidman's work and collaborated on three things. One, a Vietnam miniseries that I haven't been able to find, but that Nicole Kidman played a major role in 1987. And just to in 1987 she would have been 19 years old. I think 19 or 20. Yeah, she was born in 67. She's 1 year older than me. And one of the things that I've been noticing when I've been watching this, even early in her career. So her three films with Kennedy and Miller were the Vietnam miniseries, then Dead Calm in 1989, and then a film called Flirting in 1991, which was a really big deal in Australia. It won their version of the Academy Award. It's a fantastic coming of age film with just a powerhouse of young versions of actresses who have gone on to be, just world, changing and how great they are. One is Thandie Newton, the other is Naomi Watts, and you have Nicole Kidman 2 years after she played a very adult role in Dead Calm, coming back to play a very convincing high school teenager 2 years later in 1991. So already you're seeing this character actor, even as a teenager, she's already this stealth character actor.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the transformation you don't really get credit for, but you still have to work to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just let's gas on Dead Calm for just a little bit, because you just watched it.
And we're definitely going to have to say some spoilers for this movie, because if you haven't seen it, pause it and watch it, because we got to talk about the amazing death scenes and impalements. So many things shooting at Billy Zane. Sometimes they stick to him, sometimes they don't. But what a great movie. It's so great to see like a thriller where it's just three people on two different boats. They're not even all on the same boat most of the time. And you have poor Sam Neill dealing with stress by himself on the sinking ship. And then you have Billy Zane being, just menacing Nicole Kidman on their boat and their dog, Ben. And she's already in this movie, she's doing that thing that I love where she's it's what she's not saying, which is so much more interesting. It's a lot of her thinking and her just the way she does emotion. She's not overdoing it. And it's such a good, you make this character so deep and so rich within 90 minutes, of a thriller without knowing too much about this person. We find out some tragedy in her past, but then that's kind of it. And then the way she figures things out and works around dealing with Billy Zane's creepy character is so good. And she's so good in it. And she is the star of that movie. She is the person that you're really
absolutely
you're following. It's not Sam Neill, it's her.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it is. That was the film that really put her on the map, and I feel embarrassed because I remember reading about it when it came out, and they raved about Nicole Kidman, and I was just sort of eh. It took me a long time to really to accept her. In between Dead Calm and Flirting is Days of Thunder, which we can talk about in a bit, but I just wanted to say a couple things about Dead Calm. First of all, in my research, I found out that George Miller was the second unit director on Dead Calm, which explains why you have such this is a movie that starts with a baby flying out of a window.
Yeah.
And then ends with Billy Zane. Spoiler alerts. Okay, it ends with Billy Zane getting shot through a sail. So it's a movie that begins and ends with projectiles going through screens.
Yeah.
And seeing that George Miller was the director on the second unit, I just love that he brings a bravura to the second unit stuff that makes it, that adds this other level of pulpy fun. I mean, the film isn't really fun. I mean, it's fun if you like thrillers. I mean, it's this poor woman gets, and they get put, Billy Zane is not very nice to this couple, and they've already been through a rough time before they even start on this, and you want to like them.
Yeah.
Even though Sam Neill he's got a very, very young wife. She's got to be 19 or 20 when she's making this movie. But she just goes toe to toe with these two, with at least one, for Australia, a serious heavyweight, going up against with Sam Neill. And I don't say against, but being paired with Sam Neill at that time was kind of a big deal in world cinema, but a huge deal in Australian cinema. And you can see why that launched her to 1 year later. She's in Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise, and they're a couple. And she goes back to do Flirting But and you haven't seen Flirting, right?
I have, but it's been so long that
Oh.
I could not like tell you details of it. But I remember liking it.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful little film. It's the kind of film that you hear about and think you should watch and then think, oh, that's going to be boring. But then when you actually watch it, you're like, oh my God, I don't know why. Again, Dead Calm and Flirting, if you're interested in getting to see the birth of a great actor, I think Dead Calm and Flirting are a way better way to start your exploration of Nicole Kidman than Days of Thunder and Far and Away.
Yeah, it's and they don't know what to do with her. You know,
No.
they were kind of using her in the way that I stupidly assumed that she was in every movie of like, okay, you can be, you know, this lady that's supporting like the guys who are the, you know, Tom Cruise and, you know, Michael Rooker and the, you know, the real stars of this movie. But you're pretty, you know, you can be in this. Like we like you in this Hollywood sort of like you're a pretty actress of the moment thing. Uh,
Yeah, she's so much the heavyweight in both those films, and they don't even know it. That's it. It's like she
Yeah.
doesn't even get it. Like she's good in all the stuff she's in, but yeah, some films know how to use it, and some don't. And
Yeah.
so this begins what I consider to be chapter 2 of the Nicole Kidman career, like story as an actor. So you have the Australian period, which we just discussed, and then there's the Tom Cruise years, which runs pretty much from Days of Thunder in 1990 to Eyes Wide Shut in 1999. And in the midst of that, there's definitely some interesting work, and there's some less interesting work. What's your take on part 2? The
It's
Cruise
interesting
years?
because you get these sort of blockbusters where she's just sort of there to support the guy who's the star, you know. So you have your Tom Cruise stuff, then you have like Batman Forever, where like Val Kilmer's Batman, and she again is sort of like I'm the sexy reporter wondering about Batman, and like that movie also has, you know, Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey in there doing the Riddler and Two-Face. But you're like, man, Nicole Kidman, like she could have played the Catwoman and done some villain, like she is as interesting as a character actor as those two guys, if not more than. And they just have her being like, "Oh, Batman, like tell me about your," you know, this doesn't do much in it. But then you have the year after that, Portrait of a Lady, the Jane Campion movie, where she is used well. But then after that, you have the Peacemaker, where again she's just kind of there to kind of help George Clooney in one of his bigger, you know, leading movies. You know, so it's like you get this weird back and forth. You know.
Yeah.
Like they still don't know, like the ones that know, like a Jane Campion or a Gus Van Sant with To Die For, know how to use her, and she's amazing in To Die For. I think that's one of her best roles, and that was to me the first like, oh man, she's really really good. Like that is a great character. That is a great movie. Like that movie is awesome. So like the people that know, and of course these are kind of weird outsider. Like Gus Van Sant, this is before Good Will Hunting, before he was big. He was still kind of an indie guy. Jane Campion never has been a huge filmmaker. So like these kind of other people know how to use her, but then Hollywood just has no clue what to do with her.
Yeah, I went back and watched To Die For this. It's been a long time since I watched it, and I really got so much more out of it this time. When it first came out, it was promoted as a black comedy, and I suppose it is, you know, but it's so much. To me, it's a really haunting film. It really, it stuck with me in some ways that, I mean, I'm going to be sort of processing that film psychologically for a little while afterwards, because yeah, it's dark. I don't think that it's funny. Like, it's a little bit arch. It's a little bit, the jokes in it I find to be darker than like they're the darkest part of it. You know,
Isn't it Buck Henry? Didn't he write that?
yeah,
right?
Buck Henry wrote the script.
Yeah.
Which was that was another thing when I read it. I was like, holy crap! Wow, there's so much I didn't put together about that. And again, I do think that I carried a lot of the prejudices that were critiquing about Nicole Kidman into even the good stuff, even To Die For. Like I avoided Dead Calm, wasn't interested. Flirting looked like a film about some girls in high school that I wasn't that interested in. All the Tom Cruise stuff, and she was in all the celebrity. Like I think when someone is that much of a celebrity, it makes you less interested. It makes some people, we're those people, less interested in what they're doing, especially if it's sort of buried. If the Flirtings and Dead Calms and To Die Fors and Portrait of a Ladies are buried in Batman Forevers and Far and Aways, and I didn't see Billy Bathgate. Did you see Billy Bathgate?
No, I've never seen that movie.
I hear she was, supposedly she was good in it. Yeah, I feel like this is the least interesting. It's weird. It's the part that made her an international star, and I consider to be the least interesting part of her career. But even in that, she didn't really make any mistakes. She made some. She seems like someone who was willing to, if someone was willing to offer her a big role and pay her some nice money to stand next to George Clooney and wear a wig and do an accent and do all this acting, but all to just look like what we thought she is, what we think she is already when we're wrong, when we're the world that's wrong. But I think you're right. With Eyes Wide Shut in 1999, that's the beginning of the end of the Cruise-Kidman marriage and the beginning of Nicole Kidman basically owning the 21st century as probably the great. I don't know who else could lay claim to being the great film actress of the 21st century so far. If there's someone else out there who can
tell us,
please, then I'll see everything.
We'll do a month for them next year.
Absolutely. Because holy cow, this is where it just gets exciting. And I would say that pretty much every year from 1999 until now, there's at least one Nicole Kidman film that is a absolute must-see if you just love film. Now, it doesn't even have to do with if you like Nicole Kidman. She is just doing really interesting work and some big films that may or may not be as interesting.
But and also she's doing a lot of movies. Every year it's 3 movies a year. And these aren't just tiny parts. 2003 you have Cold Mountain, The Human Stain, and Dogville. She's the main lady in all 3 of those movies, and you do that in 1 year? That's crazy. And that keeps happening. Every year she's doing more than one movie. It's almost like she got the bug of oh wait, I'm really, really good. I'm just gonna do as many movies as I can do. Let's just do it. And it just it's just one interesting performance after another.
Yeah, that run particularly, and again, this is where I see someone who by this time really had her team together. Whoever was reading scripts for her and working with her, she's just kind of perfect. Eyes Wide Shut, Moulin Rouge, The Others, The Hours, and Dogville. If you want to get out from under the shadow of Tom Cruise, of being Tom Cruise's wife, that's a really great way to start. I mean,
yeah.
Moulin Rouge it's one of those films that is so much that it's kind of hard to take in a little bit. But when I went back and watched it purely, and I'm not a Baz Luhrmann hater. I think anyone who takes big swings like that, I'm all for. And
I agreed.
When he nails it, like he did in Moulin Rouge, I think it's almost as of course I love Stanley Kubrick, and so I guess I like Eyes Wide Shut more, but watching Moulin Rouge, it's hard to say that Moulin Rouge is any less of a masterpiece of just pure filmmaking than Eyes Wide Shut is. And one thing it does is Moulin Rouge at least knows that the star of its movie is Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, and that's such a tragic character in that movie. Like that, she's so good.
Oh.
That movie's so good.
It is
Like
such.
that, I was
Yeah.
weeping by the end of that movie.
Yes, and just a real, like a true movie star performance for the ages.
Mm-hmm.
Think of your favorite actor from any era of cinema. And I'm not talking about, like, she has the gritty character pieces, we'll get into those, but just like a pure, like, I am a movie star and that's taken for granted and now let's play. And just the film, like, yeah. Good job, Baz Luhrmann, for knowing to choose Nicole Kidman for that, because I'm sure other people would have been good. And there's no way that he could have known that that would be the launching pad for everything that came after, which is just, boy, I just, well, she won the Oscar for The Hours. Not one of my favorite films in this list. Just it's obviously a good film or a great film, but not a fun film.
But neither is Dogville. But in a way, the movie is really fun.
Yes, it is.
Like I love that movie. Gets me very I get very excited watching that movie. Like I love that movie so much. That was I think the first of these post 99 where I was like, oh man, these are some home runs that we're getting here now. Like this is an amazing movie and an incredible performance at the center of it.
Yeah, and for anyone who has avoided Dogville because they've heard that it's really harsh, I had this experience because I didn't really know anything about it except that I sort of had this sort of shame or embarrassment that I knew it was something that I wanted to see, but I felt intimidated by it and just sort of avoided it. But for this, I knew I had to watch it. And when it starts and you see that it's all going to happen on a set that is like a theatrical, like a stage play, having heard that it's going to be really harsh, all of a sudden I exhaled and was like, oh, I can handle the intellectual harshness of this if I don't have to watch it in a real world situation where there's real blood and real, it's all emotional and psychological violence. And I can handle that. So if you've been avoiding Dogville because you think, oh, I don't want to see Nicole Kidman treated terribly, there's something about seeing actors on stage that feels like, well, they're all, it's not like they're at the whim of this movie. They could walk off this stage. Nicole Kidman could leave the stage if she didn't want to be doing this. So she's doing this, and this is all about how great an actor she is in this amazing role. And oh my God, Dogville is
so that's one of the great. I think it's one of the best movies of the last 20 years. Like that movie's so good.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, high praise for this one. Then we have a few, we're not going to go through all these. You mentioned Stepford Wives. We were almost going to do that. We talk a little bit about Stepford Wives in the episode that comes out tomorrow about Bewitched.
Yeah.
And then, oh, sorry, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, it's just that there's a part at the beginning of the movie that like you don't even need to watch the whole movie if you don't want to, but like there's a part at the beginning of the movie when she is fired, and her reaction to it is so amazing. Like what she does without saying anything, it's just like the way that she does her eyes and the way she starts to, like, you can tell that she's like processing this information and you're seeing the character process the information on screen is so good. Like that performance is so much better than maybe that whole movie is. like just that 1 minute is worth watching. Like just check that part out. Like watch the first 5 minutes and whoa, baby.
Yeah. In doing the research for this, I listened to a podcast where some folks talked about that film and that scene, and what they focused on was her amazing shoulder acting. Like when she's walking, just again, stealth. Like when someone does as much acting as she's doing, and it can still feel organic to the character and invisible and translate, whether it's in a good film or a bad film, you're just at such a high level of craft. Yeah, I think, going back to, like back in the John Bryan episode, I was like, if you're a young musician and you want to study a musician who's going to make you better and give you an example of what a truly successful musician is, study John Bryan. I would say the same thing about Nicole Kidman for actors, especially as a young actor. She's avoided a lot of the mistakes, and obviously she has some stuff going for her. She's tall and gorgeous and has those timeless genes that she's still into her 50s. She can still keep playing sort of youngish characters. And so, yeah, she has that by birth. But a lot of people come into the acting business with some version of great tools. But most people don't then do all the extra work that it takes to be the great actor inside of that. And that's how you become someone like Nicole Kidman. Okay, so we talk about birth in our second episode of this Nicole Kidman retrospective or celebration. And we certainly talked enough about that. And we have, I hope you check that one out. We have a really great interview with Steve Shainberg, the director of Birth. So that's really cool.
You said no, Fur. You're mixing your things.
Why do I keep? I get my, because you know what it is? Because on Wikipedia they don't list it as Fur, an imaginary portrait of Diane Arbus. They just list it as Fur.
Fur, Birth. They sound the same.
And Fur and Birth. Okay, sorry. So in our third episode of this Nicole Kidman retrospective, we get to the film Birth, which was really the one that, I don't know, I feel like solidified. Like Eyes Wide Shut, it was Kubrick. Moulin Rouge, I hadn't really paid attention to. The others, I really did appreciate. And I didn't, and The Hours was, she won an Oscar, but it wasn't my favorite film. Dogville I'd avoided, and then Birth I saw, and that was before anyone really knew who Jonathan Glazer was. And that was the one that made me just, I don't know, that was the one that removed the veil that I'd been, the delusion that, oh, she's just a movie star, and seeing that she is just a truly great actor. Now, you weren't able to be a part of that episode. We have Zach Carlson, your writing partner, joined us for that episode on Birth. Do you have any thoughts on
I love that movie.
film?
I love Jonathan Glazer. I saw the movie with Zach for the first time. We watched it together, and we were both like so excited. It's funny. I don't know if you talk about this with the episodes of Zach, but it's like he is known for liking, like trash cinema and horror movies, and sort of like his expertise lies in a certain type of genre, and the fans of his are certainly, aware of that. But like, I think a lot of people maybe aren't aware that he is a huge Nicole Kidman fan, and I think it was definitely because of Birth. Like we watched it and we're both like, oh yeah, this is great. And I think that's probably why he went and saw the Stepford Wives the same year, and then told me that she was really good in that too. But no, I love that movie. That movie is definitely not for everybody. It's really cold and sad. Like that movie makes me like physically feel cold. It just feels like there's a good movie to watch in August if your AC is broken. It'll cool you off. And she is just so. That is such a real performance. That is so good, and it's such a complicated movie, and the emotions are complicated in it. And I think she just does a amazing job. Like that's definitely one of her best, I think.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where the career kind of gets exciting to me. She starts doing balancing big films with like Stepford Wives and Birth in the same year. Weird. Then we have The Interpreter and Bewitched, which we covered. We're covering next week, and then Fur, an imaginary portrait of Diane Arbus in 2006, and Margot at the Wedding in 2007, the Noah Baumbach film, which that was one of those ones where now what she's starting to play, like she plays a very unsympathetic character in that, and that we start to see her doing more of this. Like she's getting even more confidence in her ability to go from a bad big film like The Invasion that I watch. It's, whatever. She's good in it. It's fine-ish for what it is. But then that same year doing a little Noah Baumbach film, Margot at the Wedding, which, just like, okay, this is who Nicole Kidman is when she gets to be whoever she wants to be, as a movie star. We're just going to go through some highlights. I just want to mention a few highlights from the next 10 years here that are, that jump out to me. I guess this is where it's like we're getting that every year thing. So 2004, it's Birth. And then 2005, we have Bewitched. In 2006, we get Fur. 2007, Margot at the Wedding. And then one that got a lot of love and was directed by a director I like, John Cameron Mitchell, called Rabbit Hole. Got a lot of awards buzz. It's good, but it's a really sad and dark film. Just like it's not a fun film. And this is maybe something the way the world is wrong about Nicole Kidman. When she gets award, like the award buzz for her films are usually for films like The Hours or for Rabbit Hole, and not for films like Birth or Fur, like the ones that we're focusing on, which is, I think, the more interesting ones. It seems like she only gets nominated when she's suffering, when her character is suffering.
Isn't that just how awards work? Isn't it just like, oh, you have an infliction in this movie, we'll give you the award for being the stuttering king, but even though you're better in other movies, we'll ignore that. Like, I feel like that's an Academy Award problem. They like to have like, oh, you can cry a lot and be sad, therefore you must be the best actor, not just that you're really interesting, or like it's like it's ridiculous. Because she's amazing, like the Paperboy. She should have won supporting actress for that. That is a fully formed character. That is an amazing character.
Yeah.
But because she's not weeping and being all solemn through that movie,
yes,
that it doesn't. Nobody cares.
Yeah. The Paperboy is so much a better, like, no offense to John Cameron Mitchell. I mean, Rabbit Hole is a deeply felt film. It's clearly a labor of love, but it's not an exciting movie. The Paperboy is an exciting movie. Stoker, and from 2013, is a really exciting movie. Destroyer, which we get to, that's an exciting movie. It's not an exciting movie in the award sense, but we do need to give a little shout out to Trespass, where we have the Nick and Nick show. We have Nick Cage and Nick Kidman with probably, one of my least favorite directors, Joel Schumacher. Sorry, folks. I know, not to say that he hasn't made some films that I've enjoyed, but in general, I don't love his films that much. But boy, this is a pulpy, melodramatic thriller, and getting to watch Kidman and Cage work together is we should have covered this film. I kind of been kicking myself the whole time that we didn't cover it. I went back and watched it. It's not great. The third act is just a mess, but it doesn't matter. They're both so great, and I really do. Watching it again, God, Nicolas Cage is great, and I know we're here to talk about Nicole Kidman, but he's just so nuts. He's, but I guess you kind of see the difference. Like when Nicole Kidman's being nuts, she is so much more grounded. Again, it's that Alec Guinness thing. she is always basically she's always true to the moment in the film, whereas I feel like Nicolas Cage is always true to the moment in his nervous system.
Two very different actors, you know, like they're very, very different.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Did you like Trespass?
I do. Like, it definitely, like you said, like story-wise, it kind of falls apart for sure. And it has this kind of straight to video quality or straight to streaming or whatever. Like, it doesn't quite feel like a real movie in a way. Like, it feels kind of cheap for as good of the talent that's in it. But the performances are really good. Definitely worth it.
Yeah. So another one that I just stumbled across that I enjoyed and was kind of surprised. I wasn't planning on watching it, but The Family Fang, that was directed by Jason Bateman and has Christopher Walken and I forget who the actress is who's with him. Maybe Bonnie Bedelia. I think it's Bonnie Bedelia. And it's about these two children of these avant-garde artists from the 60s who it kind of reminds me of Kajillionaire in the sense that you have these two parents who put, in this case, it's siblings, through, like, make them be at the center of their wild art. Like, they'll do a thing where the two kids are playing music in Central Park, and then the father will pretend to be a stranger who comes up and just starts heckling them and yelling at them and saying that they're terrible until people start defending them, and then it becomes a fight and they film it all, and that's his art. Like this confrontational art. So it's like these two kids trying to figure out how to, just get their lives back from being raised by these, sort of narcissistic parents. And it's the kind of film you wouldn't, I don't think it's the kind of film you'd seek out or I would seek out, but definitely worth a watch. I mentioned Stoker. Yeah, just see it. It's by, what's his name? The guy who did Old Boy.
Yeah.
Park Chan-wook. And it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous film. Nicole Kidman's good in it, but it's not really about Nicole Kidman. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. As a movie star, she has no problem being playing lots of supporting roles.
Yeah.
She'll carry a film, but then she'll be in a film like Lion, where she just plays the mother of the main character. Yeah. And she's still great, doing awesome character work in it, but just being a really supportive, a supportive movie star. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if Tom Cruise was willing to be a supporting actor in as many movies as she is? He'd have such a more interesting career. No offense to Tom Cruise. I think he has a very interesting career, but I think we can see that Nicole Kidman, I think she outpaced him as an actor, if not as a movie star. So I want to talk about, she had a year for the ages. Like, I don't know who else has had a year like this. And for Nicole Kidman, it was 2017. In 2017, she's in two sort of big films from big directors, The Beguiled from Sofia Coppola and Killing the Sacred Deer from Yorgos Lanthimos. Have you seen either of those films?
I have not. It's like I'm holding on to them because I know they're going to be good. It's like you're like me, where it's like I'm not worthy of these movies yet, and I got to wait for when I know that there's a week where I've run out of really good things to watch, and these are like sitting on that shelf waiting, so I can see something that I know is going to be interesting and exciting.
Yeah, I have the same thing. Last night I was really gonna watch Killing the Sacred Deer, but it was just getting later and later, and I just thought, I'm not gonna half watch this movie. So I watched Paddington instead.
But hey, she's really good in Paddington.
She is very good in Paddington. And that's a fun little movie. Also, just a really well-made kids movie. Yeah. But so in this year, she has two films that are so good that we've both not watched them because we know how good they are. Then she has How to Talk to Girls at Parties, directed by John Cameron Mitchell. A a film that I liked so much more than Rabbit Hole, but is the kind of film that would not get awards. It's like a teen movie about punks and ravers and aliens, and Nicole Kidman plays a great sort of character supporting role. But what I think of as the two biggies from that year, she's in two series. She's in Top of the Lake, directed by Jane Campion. She's in the second season of that, in playing a really unattractive, unlikable character that is at the center of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And just, she's there with the actress.
Elizabeth
Come on,
Moss.
help me out.
Elizabeth Moss.
Yes. So she's there with Elizabeth Moss. It's Elizabeth Moss's show. And that's another thing about Nicole Kidman. She also has she over and over again is working with the best actresses of her generation, whether it's working with Meryl Streep or working with Elizabeth Moss, and is totally happy to play second fiddle or play the unattractive or evil, smaller role. Again, because she knows she can. But maybe it's not impressive because it's her, but if you look at how many actors would be intimidated to do that, especially older actresses allowing a younger actress to upstage them like that, it's rare. There's a lot of people who would advise against it, and she doesn't care. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, which I just think is maybe I think it might be one of her greatest performances in the series Big Little Lies. She plays the abused wife of Alexander Skarsgård, and she's the mother of two kids. And it's one of those performances where everyone in it is great, and she's just acting on this whole other level, which I think is the reason that series attained the success that it did. Like it would have been successful with all of those other. I mean, Reese Witherspoon's fantastic, Shailene Woodley's fantastic, Laura Dern's fantastic. They're all three really genuinely great actors. Mm-hmm. But Nicole Kidman is just in another universe in this film. I think of it as a film because it's a very cinematic series. But yeah, 2017 was one heck of a year for Nicole Kidman. Try and find another actor who gave us that many roles with that much range in any given year. Yeah. And it means she was probably working hard in 2015 and 2016, and some things got delayed and whatnot. But that's an amazing year. And then she follows that up with Destroyer the following year, which is where we end our month of Kidmania. Was there anything you wanted to say about that exciting year of 2017 for Nicole Kidman?
No, it's just like that's when she was 50. So she just turned 50 in 2017. And to be a 50-year-old actress and still, or an actor, like anybody who can be like old, that much older, and still be like trying new things and hitting these home runs, and just like still, because like she's rich enough, she can De Niro it and to do like maybe a good movie for your friend.
I don't think she'd know how.
But she clearly really loves acting, is excelling at her craft like a true artist. Like she's doing it because she is so good at it and is clearly very interested in kind of picking the brain of these characters and taking it apart. And like it's like I don't think she's ever going to retire. Like if you're making that like 2 TV shows and like 4 movies in 1 year when you're 50 and you're already like been rich for 30 years or whatever, like I think this means this is what you're going to be doing forever. Like this is what you love to do, and you're very, very good at it.
Yeah, I think we can safely say that Nicole Kidman likes being an actor.
Yeah.
So then just to bring it home, after Destroyer, she's in Aquaman. Good for her. Make some money. But I think the big ones are Bombshell, where she plays Gretchen Carlson. Not a great movie, but another of her just being like, yeah, I can be anyone. I can just transform myself. Then she's in The Prom, the musical that came out this year, dancing and singing with Meryl Streep, playing a character named Angie Dickinson, by the way. And I did not realize that. And, coming up, she's going to be appearing in The Northman, which... Are you a fan of Robert Eggers?
No, I've never read anything by him.
No, him. Not the writer, the director, Robert Eggers.
Never,
The Witch.
never heard of this person.
And oh well, I didn't see The Witch, but I did see The Lighthouse, and The Lighthouse.
Oh, that guy.
was a
Okay, yeah, I've
film-
never seen his movies. No.
Yeah, The Lighthouse is so exciting that the idea of him doing a film with Nicole Kidman and Bjork and Willem Dafoe and Alexander Skarsgård and Ethan Hawke.
Wow.
It's a miniseries based on the life of Rasputin.
Okay.
Come on. That's exciting. Okay, well, okay, final thoughts on Nicole Kidman in this. We were trying to do this as a short mini for half an hour, and it's coming in at an hour. So that's how great she is, or how bad we are at editing ourselves. But before we dive into this, first thoughts on Nicole Kidman and this month of Kidmania.
I'm just excited for people to listen to these episodes that we did. You might be looking at it being like, Bewitched, why? I thought you talked about how great she is. Listen to the episode. That movie's great. Like all these movies we covered,
Yeah.
we are all very excited about and champion. And I think we picked 4 very different movies and 4 very different roles that kind of give you a good, like if you've not caught in Kidmania yet, kind of dip your toes in with these 4 episodes and kind of see this kind of amazing range. And then, springboard from there.
Yeah. She's amazing, and it's so funny to feel the need to defend or champion someone who's so famous and so successful.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's the reason for things like Women's History Month is like, I think that there are probably a lot of people like that who we know they're great. We kind of take them for granted. And some of us never take the time to really learn enough about them for us to really get why they are where they are in, whether it's in history or in the arts or just in culture.
Yeah.
And so, not to say that we are striking a blow against sexism, but we are maybe... If this is the comeuppance, I think that maybe this is where I want to go. So, like, you could look at it and be like, oh, I have to eat my medicine. I have to learn about Nicole Kidman because it's the thing to do in Women's History Month. But then when you do, you're like, holy shit, my life is so much better. I'm so glad that wasn't medicine. That was just a great fucking meal. So...
Yeah.
So I got Kidmania, man. What am I gonna do?
Just keep watching it.
Yeah, my goal now that I feel like I've seen about 2/3 of Nicole Kidman's films. Now I'm going to have to be a completist so that I can really say that I've seen everything. So if you know where we can track down the Vietnam miniseries, I really want to find that. If you think that there are areas that we should have covered about Nicole Kidman, well, hold off for a second. Don't write to us until you listen to the next 4 weeks of episodes, because maybe we'll get to it. But if there's a film you feel like we should have covered, definitely write to us. Let us know.
Yeah.
You can contact us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can reach out to us on Instagram at @theworldiswrongpodcast. And Nicole, if you're listening, good job.
A+.
Good job. Okay, well, I guess we should give this the normal ending. So wherever you are, Nicole Kidman, just remember, the world is wrong, and it's probably wrong about you.
8 Ball.
Andras here. When I'm not co-hosting the World is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8 Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8 Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
Show.